The truth no one told you is that Machiavelli hated goals. That's right, hated them. Not because they were useless, but because they were dangerous. He knew that goals leave you weak, predictable, exposed, easy to manipulate. And perhaps you've never realized it, but a large part of your life crumbles precisely because of them. You're not failing because of a lack of strength. You're failing because you've put your mind to work serving fantasies instead of serving reality. And that's something Machiavelli would have detested. The counterintuitive and brutal thing is that goals don't move you forward. They paralyze you. You create a beautiful future just to escape the pain of the present. You say, "One day I'll get there," and feel temporary relief like someone taking a borrowed dose of dopamine. But the world doesn't respect dreams. The world respects method. And that's why, while you dream, others advance. While you talk, others build. While you plan, others position themselves. It's politics guided by reality, not by ideals. And that's why Machiavelli knew that goals are a trap created by the weak to feel strong. But there's a trick Machiavelli used throughout his life. Abandon goals and replace everything with method. When you do that, you stop seeming desperate and start seeming inevitable. You stop chasing the future and start mastering the present. And that's where your life truly changes. Because the moment you eliminate goals, you also eliminate your fragility. You become someone who doesn't wait, someone who governs. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you now. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos. It's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now, not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder. You are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. He always observed that most people create goals as if they were creating a parallel world to escape their own lives. Machiavelli would say that this is not politics guided by reality, but by fantasy, and fantasy has never won any war. When someone decides, "Next year I'm going to change," they are usually saying, "Today I don't want to face the truth." It's an elegant way of postponing pain, as if the future were a magic drawer where everything resolves itself. But the future isn't magic. It's merely the sum of what one does now. And when a person hides behind beautiful goals, they lose the virtue necessary to act in the present, believing that simply wishing is half the battle. But wishing is not a method. Wishing is anesthesia. Machiavelli knew that the end justifies the means, but only when there are means, and goals are not means. They are well-packaged excuses. He saw that most people are not weak due to a lack of ability, but due to an excess of fantasy. And that's precisely where the trap he fought so hard against is born, because the person spends their whole life saying one day, and one day never comes. The truth is that for most people, goals function as emotional tranquilizers. A person says, "I want to earn more," but doesn't change their position on the board. Says, "I want to get stronger," but doesn't even adjust their own eating routine. And at best, tries to start on Monday. Machiavelli would see this as a lack of constant adaptability. People trapped in the illusion of what they would like to be and not in what they need to do. He himself didn't live by goals, he lived by method, because method is concrete, solid, immune to the storms of fortune. When someone only lives by goals, a whirlwind of life is enough to make everything crumble. And then self-esteem falls, as if it were the universe's fault, when in reality it was just the person building castles in the air. It's like planning to become an investor by buying a book and leaving it closed on the shelf. The appearance of virtue doesn't replace real virtue. But the most curious thing is that the more goals someone has, the more paralyzed they tend to become. And Machiavelli knew, those who want to advance act first. Those who want to remain the same plan too much. And perhaps the hardest and most liberating point is this: goals keep us weak because they keep us waiting. They put a person in a state of becoming, of someone who is always almost, going, trying, but never truly being. Machiavelli would understand that this robs us of inner power, because those who live in the not yet lose the strength to act now. It's like someone who wants to work in technology, for example, but spends months choosing the ideal course, the ideal computer, the ideal moment, while others simply start. And by starting, they adapt, make mistakes, get it right, and grow. The end justifies the means, but only for those who move. Too many goals create a fog that hides the only real path: consistent, silent, and calculated action. That's why Machiavelli didn't have goals. He had method, positioning, and strategy based on real human nature. And when someone understands this, they realize that abandoning goals isn't giving up on life. It's finally taking the wheel of it. And that's where an even deeper question arises, leading us to the next point. Why exactly are goals such a seductive trap? He realizes that many people create goals not because they want to evolve, but because they are not ready to face their own lives head-on. It's like Machiavelli said, without politics guided by reality, there is no progress, only imagination. When someone says, "Next year I'll change," they are merely applying an emotional analgesic to escape the current pain. Instead of facing the present, the person creates an idealized future where everything magically works out. But this future is nothing more than a comfortable fantasy, an elegant way to avoid concrete action. The end justifies the means, but only when the means exist. And in this case, the only means used is imagination. It's like someone who says they will write a book, travel the world, or change careers, but doesn't revise a text, doesn't research a country, doesn't learn a new skill. In this sense, a goal becomes a crutch, and crutches don't make anyone run. Machiavelli would call this the appearance of virtue. It seems noble to have goals, but deep down, it's an anesthetic. And like all anesthetics, its effect wears off, and when it passes, the pain returns even greater. See how this works in practice. A person feels stagnant, and to alleviate the guilt, creates overly ambitious goals to compensate for the lack of action. But this only sinks them further, because it creates a fantasy world where they live as an ideal self that has no relation to who they really are. Machiavelli would call this decisions based on real human nature, but in this case, the person ignores even their own nature. They imagine a bright future but live a chaotic present, and when reality catches up with them, they crumble. Many do this with money. They say, "I'm going to invest," but never study fundamentals, never look at balance sheets, never test a small operation. Others do this with their careers. They claim, "I'm going to earn 10K, but don't position themselves where 10K is circulating. It's like trying to drive with a map drawn by a child, beautiful, colorful, but incapable of leading anywhere. And yet the brain loves this false map because it alleviates the pain of inadequacy. However, as Machiavelli would warn, relief is not power, action is. The problem is that by betting one's self-esteem on outcomes beyond their control, a person enters a cycle of silent self-destruction. They fall in love with a future they lack the means to build and become frustrated with a present they lack the courage to transform. This undermines virtù because it weakens their autonomy, their capacity for adaptation, and even their sense of reality. Fortuna, the inevitable chaos, easily destroys those who live on unrealistic expectations. It's like someone who decides, I'm going to run a marathon, but has never even run 2 kilometers. The goal becomes torture, not a guide. Instead of a map, it's a hallucination. And the more they try to cling to this illusion, the heavier life becomes. Machiavelli knew that power is born from what is possible now, not from what is imagined for later. But most prefer to dream, because dreaming is cheap and comfortable. However, the price of comfort is high. It destroys more ambitions than any external enemy. And it is precisely this emotional rigidity generated by goals that opens the door to the next point, the risk of falling into tunnel vision and breaking down in the face of one's own expectations. He realizes that when someone sets a rigid goal, they automatically create a mental tunnel that narrows their perception of reality. Machiavelli would warn that rigid things break precisely because the world operates with fortune, chaotic, unpredictable, violent. When a person focuses only on the mountaintop, they don't see the cliff at their feet. They concentrate so much on the future that they lose sight of the present, and without a politics guided by reality, they make blind decisions. It's like an athlete who only thinks about the podium and ignores basic technique. Sooner or later, they stumble due to their own excessive haste. The obsession with the goal makes a person ignore signs, people, opportunities, and risks. They become predictable, something Machiavelli considered a fatal error in any power game. And the saddest thing is that this tunnel vision creates such a strong emotional attachment to the destination that any deviation seems like a tragedy. But deviation, in fact, has always been part of the journey. It just wasn't part of the tunnel. And when this rigidity dominates the mind, the smallest mistake becomes a psychological earthquake. The person believes they failed not because they made a mistake, but because their goal was tied to their own identity. They didn't just want to achieve something, they wanted to prove who they are. Machiavelli would say that this is surrendering one's power to something external, and nothing that depends on the external is safe. When the goal becomes identity, any failure becomes a personal attack. It's like the young person who decides, I'm going to get into medical school, and upon failing once, interprets it as meaning they are stupid, incapable, unworthy. They don't understand that the end justifies the means, but the means may require new strategies, new environments, new allies. This tunnel vision kills constant adaptability, one of the central elements of virtue. When the person could simply adjust the plan, they give up because they feel they have broken something inside them. And they haven't broken anything. They've just become too blind to realize that the world never follows the plan we make on paper. And there's an even more dangerous detail. By focusing only on the destination, a person completely disconnects from the ground they're standing on. They ignore leverage opportunities, strategic relationships, and market signals. And Machiavelli would remind us that those who ignore true human nature inevitably lose. People try so hard to get there that they forget to position themselves here. That's why so many get frustrated, because they treat life as a straight road, when in reality it's a fluid labyrinth where each turn can offer a new attack or a new chance. It's like someone trying to start a business focusing only on final revenue, without validating the product, without talking to customers, without adjusting strategy. They don't fail for lack of effort, they fail for lack of peripheral vision. Obsession narrows the mind, and a narrow mind limits power, and this limitation paves the way for an even more serious mistake, that of announcing objectives and surrendering power to the world before even acting. He often says that announcing goals is like telling the enemy exactly where you're going to attack. Machiavelli would explain this clearly. Power isn't declared, it's demonstrated. When someone says, I'm going to do this, I'm going to achieve that, the brain releases dopamine before the effort, completely sabotaging discipline. The person feels like a winner without having won, and Machiavelli would remind us that this is the kind of illusion that brings down princes. The end justifies the means, but by announcing the end, you destroy the means. It's like telling everyone you're going to write a book and then never typing a single line. The dopamine has already given the feeling of victory. It's an appearance of virtue that deceives even the one who produces it. And the most curious thing is that this applies to everything: diet, studies, business, career. When you talk too much, you act too little, because talking gives relief, while action requires effort. Machiavelli would say, avoid being hated, but also avoid being predictable. And nothing makes someone more predictable than announcing dreams that aren't ready to be born. Furthermore, when you reveal your goals, you create invisible enemies. You don't need to harm anyone. It's enough to appear to be making progress. Machiavelli knew that true human nature operates with envy, doubt, and silent competition. When you say, I'm going to start a business, many people start hoping you fail, sometimes even unconsciously. It's the calculated use of inner strength that should guide your path, not the desire for applause. And if you observe, you'll notice how premature announcements attract people who start giving you unsolicited advice, veiled judgments, and toxic comparisons. It's like typing in the family group chat, I'm going to start going to the gym, and the next day receiving questions like, so, have you gone yet? This doesn't motivate, it puts pressure on you, and pressure without preparation breaks even the strongest man. Machiavelli would say, be a fox when mentioning your interests and a lion when executing them. The fox observes in silence, and it is in silence that power matures. Finally, talking too much drains power. Action generates power. When you announce objectives, you abandon strategy and become a hostage to the expectations of others. It's as if you're always being observed, judged, and held accountable, and ultimately, this makes you act less out of virtue and more out of vanity. This exchange is deadly. It's better to be feared than loved even by yourself. Fearing your own laziness is more effective than seeking external applause. And when a person becomes a hostage to what they've declared, they lose constant adaptability, which is the essence of survival in environments guided by fortuna. They can't adjust the plan because they've already promised. They can't retreat strategically because they've already revealed it. They can't change direction because they've already posted it online. They are a prisoner of their own discourse, and every prisoner breaks at some point. That's why Machiavelli insisted on strategic silence, and this understanding leads us directly to the Machiavellian method, a way of operating without goals, without declarations, and without loss of power. He realizes that most people spend their lives asking, what do I want to achieve? When the correct question has always been, where should I be? Machiavelli would understand this instantly because his politics was guided by reality, not by romantic ideals. When a person focuses only on the destination, they ignore the terrain, and the terrain decides the game. It's like wanting to earn 10,000, but remaining surrounded by environments where no one even talks about money. The end justifies the means, but the means begin with strategic location. Positioning is choosing the right battlefield, not running like crazy towards a blurred horizon. Imagine someone who wants to work in technology. It's not enough to say, I want to enter the field. It's necessary to position oneself where the field thrives. Events, communities, projects, networking. Positioning creates opportunities that brute force could never achieve. And Machiavelli knew those who position themselves well don't need to run. They are found. That's why he always said that success isn't a race, it's location. You don't need to be the fastest, you need to be where the doors open. Take the example of someone who wants to earn more. Instead of repeating, I want 10K, they should say, I'm going to put myself where 10K is circulating. That's constant adaptability applied to money. The mistake most people make is trying to change their destiny without changing their environment. It's like planting a tree in the desert and complaining that it doesn't grow. The environment decides more than desire. Machiavelli called this virtù, the ability to understand the terrain and adapt. If you want to learn to invest, for example, you should join groups that talk about the market, follow analysts who study real fundamentals, test small investments, analyze assets like Veli, Peter 4 or solid real estate funds. Positioning instructs the mind, and an instructed mind creates power. But the interesting thing is that positioning isn't static. It moves according to fortuna, the inevitable chaos of the world. And that's precisely why positioning is also about interpretation. It's not just about being in a place, it's about realizing when that place has ceased to be advantageous. Machiavelli said that rulers fall because they remain where the terrain has already changed. A person insists on a failed niche, a saturated profession, a city that offers no opportunities, and still blames life. The end justifies the means, but only when the means are constantly updated. Positioning is like playing chess. Sometimes the strength lies in advancing, sometimes in retreating. Someone who wants to grow professionally can position themselves as the employee who solves problems, not as the one who follows orders. This changes everything. People begin to treat them as indispensable. And indispensable people don't ask for promotions, they happen. But to take advantage of this power, it's necessary to understand the second pillar, responsible for multiplying each move. Leverage, the art of transforming 1 into 10 without expending unnecessary force. He observes that most people try to succeed in life using pure brute force, as if merit lay in suffering more than others. Machiavelli would give a slight ironic smile here, because he knew that no one wins through brute force. Victory goes to those who use the right effort, in the right place, with the right intensity. Brute force is linear. Leverage is exponential. While common thinking says 1 plus 2, leverage transforms that same 1 plus 1 into 10. This happens when someone learns to use time, technology, knowledge, and even the work of others to multiply results. It's the opposite of politics guided by ideals. It's strategy guided by reality. Think of someone who wants to start a business. Without leverage, they try to do everything alone, from marketing to logistics. With leverage, they use automated tools, hire freelancers, delegate tasks, and focus only on what truly generates power. The end justifies the means, and the best means will always be exponential. Perhaps the biggest mistake people make is believing that leverage is something for the rich or something for big companies. It's not. Leverage begins in the mind. It's a way of seeing the world through the lens of efficiency. For example, studying 3 hours a day reading random texts is linear. Studying 1 hour a day with the right mentors, targeted courses, and strategic summaries is exponential. Investing alone on intuition is linear. Investing using professional reports, quantitative models, and well-founded analyses is exponential. Machiavelli would call this applied virtù, the ability to use the environment as an extension of one's own strength. And when someone understands that they can use the time of others, like hiring someone to take care of simple tasks, they free up energy to focus on larger strategies. This isn't laziness. This is politics guided by reality. After all, power doesn't grow through suffering, but through the intelligent multiplication of one's own resources. And what's most fascinating is that leverage eliminates one of the strategist's greatest enemies, emotional rigidity. Those who try to win through brute force cling to their own effort, as if working harder were proof of moral worth. Machiavelli never fell for this illusion. He knew that the calculated use of force consists of applying the minimum necessary to obtain the maximum return. Nothing more than that. It's better to be feared than loved, even by one's own ego. The strategist doesn't seek recognition for effort. They seek effectiveness. And when a person discovers this, they begin to operate in a completely different way. They automate, delegate, cooperate, use third-party capital, enter high-exchange environments, and multiply their knowledge. It's like trading a hoe for a tractor. The result is not only greater, it's inevitable. But for this expansion not to turn into chaos, it's necessary to master the third pillar, the one Machiavelli considered essential: adaptability, the art of becoming water within a world governed by fortune. He often said that life doesn't reward those who overplan, but those who adapt best. Machiavelli understood this like few others, because he saw the world as it truly is, governed by fortune, chaotic, unpredictable, and capable of turning everything upside down in a matter of hours. Those who are rigid break. Those who are flexible survive. Constant adaptability is virtue applied to the present time. When someone insists on a plan, even after realizing that the terrain has changed, they commit a fatal error of politics, guided by ideals and not by reality. It's like a salesperson who keeps repeating the same strategy even after realizing that the market has changed. Or like someone who insists on studying in the same way even though they are not learning anything. Machiavelli would say, "If the door is locked, go through the window." Adaptability is this ability to make quick, silent, and efficient adjustments without drama, without ego, and without attachment to the old plan. The strategist adapts before breaking. Adaptability is also the ability to transform failures into strategic advantages. Machiavelli didn't see failures as defeats, but as setbacks that offer more information, and information is power. When something goes wrong, the rigid person suffers. The adaptable person sharpens their blade. They analyze the environment, identify what has changed, adjust their method, and start again more intelligently. This applies to everything: business, studies, relationships, finance. For example, someone might lose an important client and interpret it as a tragedy. The strategist, however, sees an opportunity for repositioning, changing niches, using free time to improve skills, reviewing internal processes. This even applies to investments. When the market falls, the linear investor panics. The adaptable investor takes advantage to buy discounted assets, such as solid companies that continue to profit despite the storm. The end justifies the means, but the means change as the wind changes, and perhaps the most powerful element of adaptability is emotional detachment from the original plan. Machiavelli knew that excessive attachment makes any man vulnerable because attachment freezes thought. The adaptable person moves like water. If they cannot follow a straight line, they circumvent, infiltrate, bend, redesign. They are not irritated by obstacles. They absorb them. And this is not weakness. It is mastery of real human nature. This is why adaptable people thrive in unpredictable scenarios, while rigid people become paralyzed. Adaptability also protects the strategist from himself, preventing him from insisting on paths that have already died. And when he finally understands that each setback is merely a new geometry of attack, he begins to operate at a constant advantage. But to fully understand this advantage, it is necessary to delve into two central concepts of Machiavellian thought: virtù and fortuna, the invisible engines that shape the destiny of those who master the game of power. He always says that Machiavelli's most misunderstood word is virtù. People think it has to do with goodness, morality, or spiritual purity. Not at all. Virtù is power, capacity, constant adaptability. It's the ability to shape reality with one's own hands, even when fortuna tries to drag everything into chaos. Machiavelli understood that politics guided by reality requires capable men, not nice men. It is virtù that allows the strategist to act with the calculated use of force, to retreat when necessary, to advance when opportune, and to manipulate the environment to his advantage. When you look at someone who has built something great, you're not seeing luck, you're seeing virtù operating silently. It's like the entrepreneur who, instead of lamenting the economy, finds loopholes, creates products, adjusts prices, and conquers space. He doesn't wait for the wind, he adjusts the sails. Virtù is this, relentless competence applied without asking anyone's permission. Virtù is not theory, it's daily practice. It's understanding that the end justifies the means, not because the end is noble, but because the means were chosen intelligently. Those who cultivate virtù master essential skills for navigating real human nature: persuasion, social reading, cold courage, quick decision-making. It's like someone who decides to control their own financial flow. Instead of wanting to earn more, they learn about capital flow, study books like The Millionaire Next Door or Financial Psychology, analyze real opportunities, execute, and adjust. This movement transforms the person into what Machiavelli would admire: someone capable of producing results regardless of the surrounding chaos. The appearance of virtue is useless. Virtù is useful for everything. And the more this competence is trained, the more inevitable the strategist becomes. But virtù only fully reveals itself when confronted with its natural enemy, fortune. The Machiavellian phrase that best defines virtù might be something like, "I will acquire persuasive skills, master the flow of capital, and position myself where money needs to flow through me." This is not arrogance, it is clarity. It is realizing that power is not something one asks for, it is something one builds. Virtù makes man cease to be an object of the world and become the author of his own narrative. That is why the strategist does not seek goals, but skills. He does not seek destiny, but control. And this control is born from a profound understanding. The world is a violent river, and only men with virtù can direct it. But directing the river also requires understanding its chaotic nature. And that is where Machiavelli presents the second concept that defines the game of power: fortunum, the chaos that destroys objectives but strengthens those who have method. He always reminds us that for Machiavelli, fortune was not luck, but pure chaos. The violent river that destroys cities, drowns empires, and dismantles perfect plans without apology. While many treat the future as if it were predictable, Machiavelli dealt with the world through politics guided by reality, not by ideals. He knew that life is unstable, and rigid objectives behave like fragile constructions on the banks of a turbulent river. The end justifies the means, but no means work when the terrain changes and the person refuses to change along with it. Fortune is the pandemic that closes businesses, the unexpected dismissal, the relationship that ends, the economy that turns upside down. It doesn't warn, it doesn't wait, it doesn't negotiate. And those who operate by fixed objectives drown in it. Those who operate by method take advantage of the flood to navigate faster. It is chaos that reveals who has virtù and who only had fantasy. And the curious thing is that most people are afraid of fortune, but they shouldn't be. Machiavelli believed that the man who masters the calculated use of force and constant adaptability does not fear chaos. He feeds on it. Think of the experienced investor. When the market crashes and everyone panics, he sees opportunity. He buys solid companies at a discount, like someone buying cheap land after a flood. Or imagine someone who is laid off. The linear thinker sees tragedy. The Machiavellian sees liberation to change fields, learn new skills, seek more lucrative environments. Fortune exposes those who are trapped by unrealistic goals and rewards those who have method. That's why Machiavelli stated that those who try to control chaos fail. Those who learn to dance with it prosper. Fortune is a constant test of true human nature, and only those who are not rigid pass this test. The best metaphor Machiavelli uses is precisely that of the river. When the water is calm, any fool seems like a strategist. When the flood comes, only those who have prepared intelligent dams will survive. Objectives are fragile dams, methods are fortresses. Those who depend on goals crumble at the first obstacle. Those who depend on virtue build alternative paths. And those who operate with method not only survive fortuna, but use chaos as fuel. It's like that entrepreneur who started small, faced crises, changed niches 3 times, but never went bankrupt, because he always adjusted his pace to the river's flow. Fortuna destroys those who resist it and strengthens those who adapt. And it is precisely at the intersection between virtù and fortuna that a third essential element for real power is born: anti-fragility. The ability to grow with chaos instead of being destroyed by it. He likes to explain anti-fragility with a simple metaphor that even Machiavelli would appreciate. Candles are extinguished by the wind, bonfires grow with it. Fragile people are candles, strategists are bonfires. Anti-fragility is the ability to grow stronger with life's blows instead of being crushed by them. It is virtù applied to chaos. While many treat problems as signs that they should give up, the anti-fragile person sees each adversity as an opportunity to test methods, correct course, and gain a better understanding of real human nature. He knows that fortuna, the inevitable chaos, is not an enemy, but a teacher. When someone loses a job, for example, most suffer because they lived guided by rigid ideals and objectives. But the anti-fragile person asks, what does this new terrain allow me to do? It is politics guided by reality. He doesn't try to recover the old, he builds the next. The end justifies the means, and the means now include growing with the blow. Anti-fragility also transforms mistakes into a competitive advantage. While the average person is ashamed of failures, the anti-fragile collects them as valuable information, almost like a scientist of themselves. Imagine someone who tried to start 3 businesses and failed at all of them. For the fragile person, that's a negative resume. For the anti-fragile, it's a map of shortcuts. They already know what doesn't work. They've already trained constant adaptability. They've already developed the calculated use of force to decide where it's worth investing or not. It's like an athlete who knows every injury to their own body and therefore trains intelligently. Machiavelli would love this attitude because it eliminates the appearance of virtue and replaces it with true virtù. Competence built on the real battlefield. The anti-fragile doesn't fall apart in chaos. They organize themselves within it. They become the kind of person that fortuna cannot destroy, only strengthen. And perhaps the most fascinating aspect of anti-fragility is that it completely changes a person's relationship with fear. Those who are fragile fear falling. Those who are anti-fragile use it as a springboard. It's like that investor who sees the stock market plummet and thinks, finally real prices. Or like someone who goes through a painful breakup and, instead of abandoning themselves emotionally, uses the shock as a trigger to evolve. Read authors like Seneca or Machiavelli, refine social skills, and review their own life. The anti-fragile person doesn't cling to the ideal, they cling to the method. And when the method is solid, any impact becomes an opportunity for strategic repositioning. Every loss becomes energy, every mistake becomes direction, every crisis becomes fuel. And this mindset naturally leads us to the next section, where Machiavelli leaves the theories and enters the practical field, the tactics that transform this philosophy into a real advantage in the world. He always explains that there is a brutal difference between having a goal and having a secret agenda. Goals are external, fragile, full of the appearance of virtue. A secret agenda, on the other hand, is internal, silent, and calculated. Machiavelli would say that goals are declarations of hope, while agendas are power structures. When someone says, "I want to be promoted," they are asking the world for permission to grow. When someone decides internally, "I will become indispensable," they are operating with a policy guided by reality. It doesn't depend on anyone, only on their own virtue. The secret agenda changes behavior. The person begins to solve problems that no one sees, observes social patterns, offers solutions before they are even asked. This is the calculated use of force, applied not to impress, but to become inevitable. The end justifies the means, and the secret agenda builds real, not fantastical means. It replaces desire with method and expectation with action. A secret agenda also protects the person from the gaze of others. When someone states their goal aloud, it creates enemies, pressure, and predictability. But when they operate in silence, they accumulate small, invisible victories. Machiavelli would call this constant adaptability, adjusting the strategy without needing to justify anything to anyone. For example, instead of saying, "I'm going to start training," the person simply changes their routine, cuts out sugar, studies nutrition, follows serious professionals, and executes. Instead of saying, "I'm going to get rich," they study capital flow, learn to invest, read The Intelligent Investor, start with small, increasing contributions, and position themselves where the money circulates. Nobody sees, nobody comments, nobody interferes. The secret agenda eliminates the theatrics and leaves only the real movement. It's almost as if the person becomes invisible while growing, and strategic invisibility is a weapon that Machiavelli considered too valuable to be wasted. And the most powerful aspect of the secret agenda is that it transforms any action into an internal commandment. The person stops wanting something and starts obeying themselves. This generates a type of discipline that doesn't depend on motivation, only on an identity built through practice. It's better to be feared than loved, even by the lazy version of oneself. The secret agenda creates this healthy fear. You know that if you fail yourself, you lose inner power. And losing inner power is unacceptable for someone who operates as a strategist. Furthermore, agendas are flexible. They can be adjusted according to fortune, shaped as new opportunities arise, reinforced as virtue grows. They don't stifle, they expand. And this natural expansion of inner power only works fully when combined with the second practical tactic that Machiavelli would love: strategic silence, the art of building in the dark. He always says that silence is one of the most elegant forms of power, and Machiavelli would confirm this with a discreet smile. Strategic silence prevents others from gauging your strength, predicting your next moves, or sabotaging your actions. While declared goals attract envy, doubt, and competition, silence creates a fog that protects your virtue. It's politics guided by reality. The reality is that nobody is rooting for your success as much as you imagine. By not announcing goals, you avoid being predictable, avoid being attacked, and avoid releasing dopamine prematurely. The end justifies the means, and silence is one of the most efficient means there is. Building in the dark is like digging a tunnel, while everyone expects you to appear through the front door. In the end, you emerge where nobody was looking, and that makes you a much more dangerous player in the power game. Strategic silence is also a form of calculated use of force. The person doesn't waste energy on arguments, justifications, or explanations that yield nothing. Instead of saying they started a diet, they simply change their habits. Instead of saying they're studying, they master the subject. Instead of saying they're going to make money, they show results. Machiavelli would argue that this movement creates an aura of mystery, not the cheap fantasy of apparent virtue, but the silent respect that arises from real performance. Silence prevents external fortune from interfering with your internal method. It avoids interruptions, useless opinions, and advice from those who don't live what they preach. It preserves your capacity for constant adaptation because nothing you do depends on the validation of others. And the more you grow without making a sound, the more you become a force difficult to measure. And forces difficult to measure are feared. And the most intriguing thing about strategic silence is that it creates impact precisely when you decide to speak. Those who are always talking have no effect. Those who speak little transform each word into a weapon. It is better to be feared than loved. And silence creates this subtle fear, this perception that much is happening behind the curtain. When a person acts silently, they become the bomb that explodes all at once. They appear promoted. They appear with a transformed physique. They appear with a thriving business. There was no announcement. It just happened. This confuses observers, disarms enemies, and inspires the few who truly pay attention. And this silent posture prepares the ground for one of Machiavelli's most important metaphors, the combination of the lion and the fox, the balance between strength and cunning in achieving any real objective. He always says that if Machiavelli had to summarize human behavior in a single metaphor, it would be this: be both lion and fox at the same time. The lion represents strength, the calculated use of force, not gratuitous violence. The fox represents cunning, the keen reading of real human nature. One without the other fails. The lion falls into traps because it trusts too much in its own power. The fox avoids traps but cannot frighten anyone. Machiavelli knew that politics guided by reality requires both natures operating in harmony. It is better to be feared than loved when the situation demands strength, and to be cunning when the situation demands subtlety. Imagine someone at work. Acting only as a lion can create unnecessary conflicts. Acting only as a fox can make them invisible. Real power is born from strategic alternation, and knowing when to change skin is a sign of virtù. It is the player who changes tactics, while everyone else repeats the same move. And what's most fascinating is that this metaphor applies to simple, everyday situations. For example, when you need to negotiate a salary, being a lion means showing value, results, firmness. Being a fox means choosing the right moment, understanding the manager's emotions, preparing arguments, mapping out objections. Or when someone undertakes a project, strength lies in taking risks, while the fox appears by identifying market trends, reading competitors, anticipating movements. The end justifies the means, and the means need to be adjusted to the situation. The person who tries to live only in the lion's posture becomes rigid and predictable, breaking before fortune. Those who live only as foxes become people who never execute, always afraid of confrontation. Machiavelli argued that power belongs to those who can alternate between courage and shrewdness, between firmness and constant adaptation. This fluidity is what creates advantage. When it comes to personal ambitions, the fox must come before the lion. Machiavelli knew that when pursuing something great, the wise man must first see the traps, social, emotional, financial, before advancing with force. This applies to projects, financial goals, and personal transformations. For example, someone wants to change careers. The fox's approach investigates the market, observes what skills are needed, tests small projects, and understands the terrain. Only then does the lion enter to act with intensity, focus, and execution. This balance avoids impulsiveness and paralysis, and above all, it protects the strategist from himself, because the greatest enemy of those who seek power is not the external world. It is their own mental rigidity. And it is precisely this internal rigidity that will be confronted in the next section, where Machiavelli shows that real power is born from mentality, fearing oneself, issuing internal mandates, and abandoning the illusion of the dreamer. He often says that Machiavelli never wrote only about rulers, he wrote about you. And one of the most profound lessons is this: it is better to be feared than loved, even by yourself. Loving yourself in a romantic sense may be comfortable, but it is rarely transformative. The self-love that the world sells is too permissive. It's okay to skip work today. You deserve to rest. Do it when you feel ready. Machiavelli would call this politics guided by ideals, not by reality. The reality is that you don't become strong by being too kind to yourself. Strength is born when you fear the lazy, undisciplined, and chaotic version of yourself. The end justifies the means when the end is your sovereignty. That's why he teaches, don't negotiate with your weakness. Weakness is a subtle tyrant, and if you don't govern it, it governs you. Fearing yourself is the first act of power, and this fear is not paralyzing fear. It is respect for one's own capacity for self-sabotage. Machiavelli knew that true human nature is inclined toward comfort, escape, and procrastination. He saw this in princes, soldiers, merchants, and he would see it today in anyone who tries to start on Monday. To fear oneself is to recognize, if I don't monitor my standards, I will fall. It is reality-driven politics applied to character. Think of someone who wants to lose weight. Loving themselves too much prevents them from changing because every desire becomes a justification. To fear oneself means creating internal mandates, as we will see later. It's not optional. I don't argue with my mind. I execute because it's the law. This strategic fear is the calculated use of force applied internally, a virtue that Machiavelli would admire. He didn't want perfect men. He wanted men aware of their own shadows and capable of governing them. And when someone begins to fear their own weak version, something changes. Discipline ceases to be effort and becomes identity. The person stops negotiating with laziness, excuses, fleeting emotions. They create a commanding relationship with themselves, not one of affection. This is the first step in abandoning romanticism and assuming the archetype of the strategist. This is how an ordinary man differs from the dreamer. He governs himself before conquering anything external. And when this posture solidifies, the next element of the power mentality naturally emerges. Internal mandates, direct orders that replace fragile goals and volatile emotions with non-negotiable decisions from someone who is building their own sovereignty. He always argues that goals are fragile because they depend on mood, motivation, and even the opinions of others, while mandates are internal orders that do not accept debate. Machiavelli knew that it is better to be feared than loved, even by one's own mind, and mandates are the materialization of this principle. While a goal says, I want to lose weight, a mandate says, I have physical sovereignty, and therefore I act every day. It is politics guided by reality, not by ideals. The person stops wishing and starts executing. Mandates do not need motivation because they are born from identity, not emotion. They are the calculated use of force turned inward. You govern yourself as a prince governs his territory, without allowing childish desires or distractions to take control. The end justifies the means when the end is the construction of your own power. Mandates transform discipline into inevitability, and the difference between goals and mandates becomes clear in everyday life. A person with a goal says, "I'm going to wake up early tomorrow." A person with a mandate simply wakes up. A person with a goal says, "I'm going to start studying English." A person with a mandate has already opened the book, already attended a class, already practiced for 10 minutes today, not tomorrow. It's constant adaptability applied to everyday life. Machiavelli would say that goals are promises, and promises are fragile. Mandates are decisions based on real human nature. They understand that you will get tired, you will doubt, you will hesitate, and therefore eliminate the choice. Think of an investor. Someone who works by goals invests when they can. Someone who works by mandate invests every month without fail. They read, study fundamentals, understand capital flow, focus on the method. This consistency transforms the person into something rare, someone who doesn't depend on the emotional climate, someone with virtue. And the most interesting thing is that mandates take a person out of the world of dreams and place them in the world of construction. Dreamers say someday, architects say now. Machiavelli despised the dreamer's stance because it belongs to the realm of fantasy, not to politics guided by reality. That's why he taught, govern yourself before you expect to govern any external territory. Mandates create this relentless self-management. They transform every action, waking up early, reading, training, studying, investing, into an act of power, not a daily task. And when this becomes the norm, the person no longer needs goals. They have become someone who executes naturally. It is the moment when the dreamer begins to disappear and the architect begins to be born. And this transition leads us directly to the next essential point. How does one stop looking to the sky and begin to build the foundation of their own life? He always says that the dreamer lives looking at the sky, while the architect lives looking at his own feet. Machiavelli would have the same advice. Look at the terrain. The dreamer thinks of castles, but stumbles on the first stone. The architect measures the ground, understands the climate, studies politics guided by reality, and builds something solid. The dreamer collects goals. The architect executes mandates. The dreamer waits for motivation. The architect uses the principle that the end justifies the means to maintain discipline. And the most curious thing is that no one is born an architect. People become architects when they tire of living in fantasy. That's when they realize that one day is a date that never arrives. The dreamer says, "I want to have a business." The architect asks, "What is the first brick I can lay today?" This change of perspective takes the person out of emotional fragility and places them within virtue, competence applied in the real world. And the transition from dreamer to architect happens at the level of identity. The dreamer thinks about who they want to be. The architect thinks about who they need to be. The dreamer creates mental images, vision boards, motivational phrases. The architect creates processes, routines, methods. They understand that real human nature is unstable and that constant adaptability is the only way to survive the chaos of fortune. While the dreamer dreams of the perfect body, the architect trains today, even when tired. While the dreamer imagines getting rich, the architect studies capital flow, learns about safe investments, analyzes companies, adjusts expenses. It's like the difference between someone who designs a building and someone who actually erects the beams. One lives off the image, the other off the structure. Machiavelli would make it clear, power belongs to the architect, never to the dreamer. The most beautiful and brutal aspect of this transition is that it destroys passive hope and replaces it with inevitable action. Dreamers hope that life will improve. Architects build paths even when life worsens, and this attitude changes everything. Relationships, body, career, money, self-confidence. The architect learns to govern their own life with the calculated use of force and with the tranquility of someone who doesn't fear adjustments. They know that plans change, terrain changes, resources change, and that it is their duty to adjust before complaining. This is where Machiavelli would be proud. The architect doesn't seek approval, they seek efficiency. They don't seek destiny, they seek direction. And this direction becomes even clearer when the terrain changes completely, as we will see in the next section, where life applies its most perfect test, the moment when everything collapses and you need to rebuild from scratch. He always explains that losing your job seems, at first glance, like a death sentence. But for Machiavelli, this is merely the clearest sign that fortune has changed direction, and it is up to the strategist to change along with it. Most react with despair because they were trapped by rigid objectives, guided by ideals, not reality. My goal was to grow in this company. Now I've failed, they say. Not at all. Politics guided by reality demands a different interpretation. The terrain has changed, therefore you change. It's simple. Machiavelli would admire someone who receives their dismissal and thinks, "I am a free agent now." That phrase changes everything. When the bond is broken, the battlefield opens up. The end justifies the means, and at that moment, the means is strategic repositioning. What seemed like a loss becomes freedom of movement, and freedom is a strategist's most precious resource. The person who lives by goals thinks, "My plan is over." The person who lives by method thinks, "Which environment offers me the greatest leverage now?" Machiavelli would say that this is the difference between the naive and the prince. If you lost your job, you gained urgency, and urgency creates focus. The strategist takes advantage of this moment to analyze booming sectors, more lucrative skills, and market movements. They consider transitioning to areas with better salaries, such as technology, healthcare, copywriting, design, and high-performance sales. They study, talk to key people, and join strategic communities. It's constant adaptability applied at the most necessary moment. And above all, they avoid the appearance of virtue. They don't waste time saying, "I'm looking for a job." They simply act. Strategic silence here becomes a weapon. Nobody needs to know anything until the move is ready. And it is precisely this moment of loss that reveals whether someone was a dreamer or an architect. The dreamer collapses because their goals depended on stability, and fortune destroys stability without remorse. The architect, on the other hand, sees an advantage. They can finally build something new without emotional constraints. Machiavelli would write that this is the perfect moment to pivot, change industries, take calculated risks, learn high-income skills, and seek environments where $10,000 or $20,000 a month is normal. The layoff becomes the trigger for identity restructuring, and this movement connects directly to the next strategic skill: mentally rehearsing destruction, an exercise that Machiavelli considered essential for creating emotional anti-fragility. He always says that one of the greatest acts of power is imagining everything crumbling and realizing that even then you would know what to do. Machiavelli understood this deeply. For him, politics guided by reality demands that the strategist be emotionally prepared for the fall even before the rise. Mentally rehearsing destruction is not pessimism, it's training in virtù. It's looking at your job, your money, your relationships, your projects, and asking, if everything ended tomorrow, would I still be strong? Most people panic just thinking about it because they live dependent on stability, and Fortuna destroys stability with pleasure. The end justifies the means, and that means is brutal. Training your mind to accept the worst-case scenario without breaking. Only those who rehearse the fall remain whole when it actually happens. And this emotional preparation transforms anyone into something rare. Someone who doesn't fear change, but simply manages it. This mental rehearsal reveals your true dependencies. If you lose everything and don't know what to do, then your power was outside of you. It was in your job, your salary, the approval of others, your fixed routine. Machiavelli would say that this is the fatal error. Depending too much on external factors makes you governed, not the ruler. The strategist trains for collapse to reinforce their constant adaptability. They think, if I lose my job tomorrow, I know I can change sectors, use my network of contacts, learn quickly, reposition my value. Or, if my business fails, I will leverage the knowledge acquired and rebuild methodically. It is the calculated use of force applied to one's own psyche. It is preparing for the impact before it comes, like generals who train for imaginary battles before the real ones. This rehearsal doesn't weaken, it strengthens. It activates your virtue while exposing the fragility of the fantasy you called security. Machiavelli experienced this firsthand. He lost everything, was exiled, humiliated, and technically erased from political life. It was precisely during this period of complete destruction that he wrote The Prince, the work that would make him immortal. Fortune crushed him, virtue rebuilt him. He became anti-fragile because his power didn't depend on his position, it depended on his method. And when you understand this, you grasp the central point. Rehearsed destruction isn't about losing things, but about dismantling the illusion that you need them to be someone. That's how a true strategist is born. That's how you become a man who fears nothing because you've already faced everything in your own mind. And when someone reaches this level of inner power, the world ceases to be a threat and becomes a stage. This is where we enter the final step of the transformation. What happens when you eliminate objectives and become inevitable? He always says that eliminating goals doesn't leave you lost, it makes you dangerous. Goals make you look like someone who is chasing something. Method makes you look like someone who already has something. Machiavelli would understand this perfectly because he knew that the appearance of virtue is weak, while the silent presence of virtù is irresistible. When you abandon rigid goals and enter into reality-driven politics, you stop conveying desperation. You move with calm, precision, and inner strength. Every action becomes a ritual of power. Every silence becomes a maneuver. Every retreat becomes a disguised advance. The person stops chasing and starts attracting. The end justifies the means, and when the means are consistent, discreet, and calculated, the world begins to respond differently. You no longer look like someone trying to get there. You look like someone who is already in control of their own path. And something even deeper happens. Your mind stops drugging itself with fantasies of the future and begins to become intoxicated with the power of the present. You stop procrastinating because you no longer wait for the perfect motivation. The method demands action now. You stop comparing yourself because you are no longer in any race. You are simply building. Machiavelli would say that this is the ideal state of the strategist, someone who does not depend on fortune, but who uses it when it appears. You begin to read the world clearly because you are no longer trapped in the illusion of not yet. Instead of seeking results, you seek movement. Instead of seeking promises, you seek positioning. And this changes everything. Self-esteem, relationships, financial decisions, habits. Your life ceases to be a sequence of emotional trials and becomes a sequence of decisions based on real human nature, including your own. Over time, this attitude creates a kind of inevitability. It's not sudden success, it's constant progress. People realize that you don't waver, you don't get emotional, you don't get lost. You are the eye of the storm, calm, cool, vigilant. You become anti-fragile because nothing shakes you, it only sharpens you. Each defeat becomes a new geometry. Each obstacle becomes a repositioning. Each criticism becomes a diagnosis. Machiavelli would value this type of man because he doesn't need applause, destiny, or goals. He is pure method, pure virtù, pure constant adaptability. He is not driven by hope, but by strategy. Now that you understand why Machiavelli despised goals, the question that really matters is, what are you going to do with this? Are you going to continue collecting goals that weaken you? Or are you going to start building the method that makes you inevitable? Because in the end, what separates those who grow from those who only dream is not talent, luck, or motivation. It's the courage to abandon fantasy and take control of your own movement. Stop and ask yourself, what goals are you using as anesthesia to avoid facing the present? How many promises have you made to yourself that were nothing more than pretty phrases? How many times have you waited for motivation when you should have acted? Be honest, are you governing your life, or are you being governed by it? Machiavelli would make it clear, power is not born from hope, it is born from action. So put all of that into practice. Choose a mandate, adjust your positioning, use leverage, adapt before the world forces you to, and above all, eliminate someday. Life only changes when you change the present. If this video opened your eyes, tell me in the comments, what goal are you going to abandon today? And if you want to continue learning the true art of power, strategy, and self-mastery, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and come with me. Here, you won't learn to dream. You'll learn to govern.